Hey guys, welcome back to a True Crime Tuesday. We're going to go ahead and get into it. Every Tuesday, we talk deeply about crime, old cases, new ones, and what they reveal about us. We search for meaning, for accountability, for what we can take from these crimes and from maybe the people who committed them or the justice systems that tried them, what we can take from it through a center living lens. But today, I just kind of want to take a second to look at the silly things that happen, the crimes that make you laugh before they make you think. Because sometimes what we find in the space between isn't tragedy, isn't outrage. Sometimes it's just humor. And even that humor can give us a little life lesson. So let's get into it. Let me tell you a story about a man who woke up one morning and said, "You know what? Today feels like a good day to commit a felony with paper." This is the story of Michael Conley Lloyd, a man who robbed a bank using a demand note written in pink highlighter on the back of his own birth certificate. Yep, his birth certificate. The document specifically designed to prove who you are, which he then handed to a bank teller while committing a crime. It's like robbing a bank with a name tag that says, "Hi, my name is, please arrest me." Lloyd walked into a Bank of America wearing one orange shoe, handed over his birth certificate slash robbery note, and walked out with $754, which is not that much when you think about how much you can spend at Target when you're just shopping for like toothpaste and toilet paper. But here's where it gets better. He was already wearing a court ordered ankle monitor, which is basically a GPS tracker for adults who make bad choices. So police didn't even have to investigate. They just opened the app. And when Lloyd realized the cops were coming, he panicked and started throwing the money, his ID, and his birth certificate out the window, like he was trying to backtrack his way out of the federal crime that he had just committed. His motive? He told police he did it to prove a point to his girlfriend. What point? Not very clear. But if the point was, "I make terrible decisions," he accomplished his goal. This is one of those crimes that make you wonder, was this a robbery or a cry for help from a man who should have never been allowed to make a point ever again? The lesson? When we act from emotion instead of awareness, we weaponize our own identity. When we try to prove a point, we often end up proving the wrong one. Next, I'm going to tell you the true story of a man who learned the hard way that not every tank holds treasure. Russell Springs, Kentucky, late October 2023. A local thief decides he's going to beat rising gas prices the old fashioned way by stealing fuel. He spots a big truck parked behind a gas station, hose in hand, ambition in heart, and not a single brain cell working correctly. He pops the cap, drops the hose, and starts siphoning. But instead of unleaded, he gets an even bigger gag reflex. Because that wasn't a fuel truck. It was a septic tank truck full of raw sewage. Within seconds, he's gagging, stumbling, and sprinting away, leaving behind his hose the tools he had used and probably a lot of his dignity. Police arrived at the scene of the crime to find a puddle of regret and a smell that could end their friendships. They follow the footprints, review the footage, and arrest him later that week. Charge: attempted theft and property damage. Sentence: eternal embarrassment. Now, on the surface, it's hilarious. A man so desperate for free gas, he ends up stealing something far worse. But underneath the comedy, there's a truth worth sitting with. Because the story isn't just about stupidity, it's about shortcuts. That impulse we all have to grab what we want fast without checking what we're actually reaching for. He saw a big shiny truck and assumed it held value. He didn't stop to ask, what am I really taking in? And that's the same mistake people make every day, chasing status, validation, or quick wins that turn out to be toxic once they're in your system. The universe has a sense of humor, sure, but it also has a way of teaching lessons through irony. Sometimes when you try to siphon success, you end up swallowing the consequences. So yeah, laugh at the gas station genius, but also remember every shortcut has a smell test. And if something stinks from the start, maybe it's not the fuel you're meant to run on. The next story is about a man who broke into a house and then quickly broke into his REM sleep. Sarasota, Florida, 3 a.m. A burglar slips through a window, quiet as a whisper, ready to make his mark. He moves through the living room, pockets a few valuables, and then, somewhere between adrenaline and exhaustion, decides it's time for a nap. He curls up on the couch, surrounded by the evidence of his own crime, and he drifts off to sleep. The homeowner wakes up to find him snoring, one hand clutching a stolen necklace like a toddler with a security blanket. Homeowner doesn't scream, they don't panic, they just call the police, softly, like they're reporting a wild animal that wandered in. Officers arrive, and there he is, still asleep. They wake him gently, because honestly, you don't want to startle someone mid-dream. He blinks, confused, and tells them he was just too tired to keep going. Now, it's funny, you can laugh, and you probably should. It's objectively hilarious, but beneath the comedy is something familiar. Burnout. This man didn't just run out of energy, he ran out of awareness. He was chasing adrenaline, chasing control, and his body said, nope, we're done. That's the center living angle here, the moment when exhaustion overrides intention. When we ignore rest, our best and even our worst laid plans collapse under their own weight. He wanted to take something from someone else, but ended up losing the only thing he still had, his freedom, because he couldn't stop long enough to breathe. And there it is. In trying to steal time, he lost all of it. It's a reminder that fatigue doesn't care about your goals, your crimes, or your deadlines. It will catch up, whether you're robbing a house or just running yourself ragged chasing validation. So again, laugh. It's funny. Can you imagine? But also hear the whisper underneath the joke. Rest isn't optional. It's the pause that keeps you from becoming your own punchline. So, after all these stories, the man who robbed the bank with his birth certificate, the guy who siphoned sewage instead of gas, the burglar who fell asleep mid-crime, it's easy to laugh, and we should. Humor is how we breathe between the heavy parts of our life. Humor is amazing. Laughter, they say, is the best medicine. And I am one of those people that when I'm with my people, I love to laugh. If we can laugh together, we can be friends forever. But here's the thing. Funny true crime isn't about stupidity, it's about humanity. Every ridiculous decision starts with something we recognize, whether it's pride, exhaustion, desperation, the need to be seen. The comedy is just the way those emotions and feelings showed up in these lives when they trip over themselves. When we laugh at these stories, we're not mocking the people in them, we're acknowledging the truth that we all make mistakes. The difference is scale. Most of us don't make the evening news when we make our mistakes. Even in absurdity, there's a mirror. The same impulses that drive tragedy also drive comedy. Ego, fear, loneliness, the chase for validation. So maybe the lesson isn't so much don't be dumb, maybe it's slow down enough to see the joke before you become the joke. Because humor, at its best, doesn't just make us laugh, it makes us aware. Find the wisdom hiding inside the punchline, because sometimes what we find in the space between isn't darkness or redemption, it's laughter reminding us that we're still human. And that's where we'll leave it, a lighter look at the strange, the silly, and the human side of crime. Because sometimes laughter is just the pause between the heavy stories that remind us why we care. I hope to see you next Tuesday when we return to the deep cases, the ones that ask harder questions and help us find meaning in the space between. Just a little hint, we'll be going back to 1970. See you guys then.